just want to announce Craig Counsell as the 56th manager in Cubs history. All right, congratulations. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Feels good. Feels good. Thank you. You walk into, Wrigley today, the first day as a Cub, and it already starts to mean something. You walk into the history. You walk into the energy. You walk into a place that, you already know it demands your best. And that feeling is just a feeling that I need to have, and I love to have, and I love that to be a part of, my daily life. And so that feeling exists right now is really, really special for me, and makes me so excited. It really does. I saw quickly that, the organization is just in great health. And, that Jed presented a very compelling vision of that. It is time to be a Cub, right? There is momentum happening here, and it feels close. And that means there's a really exciting future ahead of us. And now it's my job to be part of taking us to the next level. And that's the plan, all right? The biggest thing people have to do is we have to figure out, you got to have the courage to be yourself. And I think identifying that in people is probably the first thing. There's a selflessness to winning. That's important. There's, can you see the bigger picture? And then, the bond that in sports that teammates create is the most powerful things that sports has going. And that's a bad word, but making sure that you understand how important that word is, teammate, I think goes a long way to producing winners. What you have to be careful about is that, what happened last year does not indicate this year, and I think teams are different. I've used this analogy for a long time, but there's a soup made, and it can be the same players, but it's going to taste a little different next year when Grandma makes it. You know what I mean? And so it's always a little different, and you have to create a new dynamic every single year, no matter what's going on. And so there'll be players that have had wonderful years last year that are not so much, and vice versa. But there's a solid core and a solid foundation, and that, speaks to the health, I think, of the organization, and that speaks to a bright future. I have to be prepared. That's first. I have to have the courage to be myself, because when you put yourself out here in these situations, you mess up, you have flaws, you're not going to be perfect. That's okay. And then I have to connect with people, and because that brings out the best in them. And I think that's specifically players, to put them in a position to succeed and put them in the best place to succeed, mentally and as teammates. So those are the three things that I, ask of myself, and try to do. And then there's some let the chips where they fall, that you have to be okay with. So I would say those are the three things. When I talk about connection, that's a big word with players, and that's a big word with uniform staff, obviously, but it's also a big word with what are now much bigger organizations and people supporting baseball, the team, and that connection and that partnership is really important. And that's how I think that's another way that a manager can really affect what's going on. So we all see the game out there and the results of the game out there, and there's a win and a loss, and we move on. I think there's things happening around that add up over the course of the season, and I the manager in today's game, to me, plays a role connecting both of those parties. And if you can do it well, I think there's a place to have a real impact. Yeah, I mean, look, David is a very good man. David texted me probably before the news broke here, and I called him back immediately. We had what I think is a very good conversation. That gave me, I've always had great respect for David. That gave me the ultimate respect for David, the way he handled the conversation. So this is part of this business is really difficult and it's really cutthroat. And as a player, I've lived it, David's lived it. Every player lives it every day. But I respect the heck out of David Ross. I've had this philosophy, just like stack little good decisions on top of each other. Just keep stacking a good decision on top of each other. And then you wake up one day and you're sitting in a pretty good place. And all those good decisions have kind of formed a backbone of your organization. And you're sitting in a very, very strong place. So getting the little things right and those little decisions right, and just keep getting that next decision right. Keep getting that next decision right. That's where it adds up over time, and that's when you wake up one day and your organization's in an incredibly strong place. Well, there's pressure in this job, man. I mean, there should be, and I accept that and welcome it, and I think it should be there. So I don't think regardless of what's going on salary-wise. Like, look, there's a financial component to this. Obviously, there is. But my job's to win baseball games, no matter what. And I wish, I wish. Unfortunately, your competitiveness does not allow you to just behave differently. You just can't. That's just what you do. You go in a dugout, and your job is to win a baseball game. Doesn't matter who your team is. That's kind of how I see what I do. Doesn't matter what's around you, but once the game starts, your job is to win a baseball game. And you keep it that simple. I think more resources is certainly something Chicago offers, and there's no question about that. It's part of the equation. It's part of, I think, how you kind of tackle the problem of being a great baseball team and being a great franchise. There are also other things that excite you, like this place. Is just, you can't help but get excited about it. The brand that the Chicago Cubs are, like, you can't help but get excited about representing that. I think the first thing you learn, and what I've always said is, like, the courage to be yourself is the first thing you learn about managing. It's really the first thing you need to learn about it. It's not the strategy of the game. It's not when to take the starter out. It's do you have the courage to be yourself throughout this process? It's what you learn first. And I think, there's sometimes early in your careers, there's a fearlessness to how you do things, which is a good thing, right? Young, crazy, there's that fearlessness that we all used to have. Some of you still have, hopefully. But that and then as you get older, you experience and kind of reps of events in managing, whether that be conversations with players, whether that be game situations, whether that be front office interactions, then they start to guide you a little bit more, because those reps, those kind of that really help you form kind of gut decisions are really important to you. So that's how I think you improve. And so you try to have this blend of, like, don't lose that fearlessness, but your gut is better because of all those reps that you've had. And hopefully that's what I think makes you a little better at the job and keeps you growing. And then the other thing is, like, this is why I'm here, because you have to challenge yourself to get to the next place. I believe that you have to create a challenge for yourself to get to the next place. What's fun about this is that there's like a workplace dynamic, right? And you start to learn personalities, and you start to learn how to communicate with each other and how to get things done, how to push a button sometimes, right? Like, because that's what you need to do. And so, yeah, I've got my early read on that kind of like in my head. And that's helpful, man. That's how we're going to communicate together. And that's how we make progress. And that's how, like, I push Jed and he pushes me and Carter pushes me. And so that's the fun part about this, kind of getting to know each other, feel each other out, test each other. That's awesome, man. I love that part of it. And because in these early conversations, you learn so much, and you learn so much about each other, and you find places where you can make each other better, and I think that's a big part about, I think, what Jed would tell you about what this partnership is about, is how we can make each other better, and it's a part you look forward to.